And hello, good morning, guys. Hope you can hear me all right. A couple little glitches I've been trying to work on for the past 10 minutes now on our system. Not a shocker. I always run into that issue. I'm always the first one to use this thing usually of the day. So if there's any issues, I find them. Okay, anyway, we're here. Hello, welcome aboard. Type 1 if you can hear me. Type 2 if you can't. Type 2 if you'd rather be back in bed again, especially if you're at work. Wave meteorologist Brian Good. It is 51 minutes after the hour as we are gearing up for what could be an active setup for part of the area as we know later on for this afternoon and certainly this evening. Not completely so. It's going to be a huge issue right now based on several different factors that come into play. The outlooks even reflect that in a sense too. A little more of an issue off to the north. Everyone's chiming in 1 and 3. 1 and 3. All right, 1 and 3. There you go. All right, we'll get to some of your comments coming up. As always, you guys comment on the social media side. As you guys remember, it's the best way to interact, even if with each other, if I'm able to respond to your questions in time. And I'm sure you're going to have questions with this setup. All right, let's start with a lot of the current ordeal that we're at play here for the short term. It's cloudy outside out there at the moment. Now, that helped along that south wind to keep our numbers up. We've been running mild all night long on temperatures outside, running generally into the 50s and 60s, keeping us nice and comfortable this morning, right? So here's the wind advisory that came out yesterday for much of the area. Carroll County is the only county not included. Criteria is a little more strict there for Carroll County. As a result, the wind advisory is out. Officially starts at 11. I just don't see much of an issue, though, on wind getting to that threshold until right before the storms move in. So late this afternoon and this evening, as long as we're cloudy outside, it is going to be tough to create higher wind gusts that would get to advisory level. But it's still going to be a breezy day regardless. But we'll walk you through it as we always do, hour by hour. Right now, the gusts have been averaging about 15 to 25, maybe up to 30 in a few cases. And this is where we'll likely hold until we get some sun breaks, or perhaps even try to clear the sky out altogether, which is going to be tough for a lot of you watching right now. Those of you to the north will have a better opportunity to see some of those sun breaks kick in, and therefore a bit warmer. But no doubt it's a strong south flow, allowing temperatures again to start off on a mild note in the 60s. We don't have to go far to get to 70, right? If the clouds weren't in the way, we would be talking about an 80-degree day today, easily an 80-degree day. But instead, we're talking about 70, the lower 70s, just based on cloud cover. And the clouds are fully in charge, as well as moisture, but certainly the clouds are fully in charge of how this whole day evolves, and certainly as we get into tonight. All right, so we got the good news out of the way, that it's warm outside and quiet, no major issues. Looking from space, you can see the high deck of clouds that are over us, really over the core of wave country. But when you travel to the north, then you run into the areas that do have more of a sunny start today around Chicago, northwest side there of Indiana. And that's why I think they're in a spot that's not in a good area to be in, because you have the low pressure that is spinning just to the southwest of where it's going. And that is adding a natural spin to the air, as we always say. In these scenarios, you don't want to be on that southeast or the American flag, the box zone of the warm sector. If I were to draw the whole warm sector, you don't want to be in that little corner there. And that corner is what's going to be passing right into Illinois and parts of Indiana as we into later on this afternoon, certainly this evening. As it does so, the American flag box will clip just across southern Indiana as it is doing so. So that's the zone. Let me clear off my Nintendo drawings. There we go. This is the zone right in through here that you're going to run into at least your best opportunity to run into an isolated tornado setup and damaging winds. That threat drops off another category as you get into southern areas of Indiana, perhaps just our northern fringe counties. And then it drops off even more dramatically as you head into Kentucky. You have different wind directions that are involved here as you go up and down from Chicago down towards, say, Bowling Green. The wind fields vary as you venture down. Still, a lot of wind shear. Don't get me wrong, we have a lot of wind shear at play, but we don't have the equal amounts of fuel at play in all areas. And I do think that's going to be one of the driving factors of how this will unfold. This is not going to be a major outbreak, but as I've said before, it only takes one to ruin your night and ruin your day, right? Already starting to see some of the thunderstorms beginning to pop there into Illinois. They're right to that spot where the enhanced risk is basically at. This is the upgrade they made at, 1 or 2 o'clock this morning. The enhanced risk for just being in that bad spot of the track of the low. And they expanded that threat to for damaging winds and isolated tornadoes just to encompass the entire box itself, the American flag box zone. And then you can tell that once you get down to just the front, just the boundary moving through, moisture levels begin to drop off. But you also don't have as much of the turning of the wind that will take place as well from areas across, say, Indiana and Illinois compared to even E-Town, for an example. All right, so that's the official storm outlook that we're looking at. I did see a second ago comment. Joel, I think you just said it. I'm glad you said that because I wanted to go back to that. Yes, this will be a dirty rain because we were looking, and this right here, this is all dust that was blown in from Texas yesterday. So as the showers and thunderstorms get going here this evening, your car will likely be muddier than it was before. We ran through this, a week ago? So yes, Joel, you're right. This will actually be a dirty rain today for us, moving into the area. Any showers move through. This is, you can't tell by this image, but this is all a brown haze that is around St. Louis at the moment. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Okay, so there's your outlook again from the Storm Prediction Center. This will be updated again at 12:30 today. Don't right now see a lot of big changes. There may be some alignment issues. They may kind of adjust based on how the sun evolves here the next few hours on where to shape the enhanced risk. The slight risk could even get a little more sharper angle to it. That's possible, but they would be cosmetic. I don't see anything drastic that is going to change the setup, that the low's there tracking over here in that direction. So that's not going to change. It'd be different if the low is going to be going a whole other direction, right? So let's break it down even more. I love that we can do this from the Storm Prediction Center. When you look at the tornado potential, the hatch is back, indicating a couple of strong tornadoes could develop in Illinois. They're just in that spot, and they've been showing up in that spot for the past couple of days of that arc of supercells that will be forming this afternoon. They're just in a bad spot ahead of that low with some sun breaking out there. So everything's kind of coming into line for them to be a bit busy here for a while this afternoon. Tornado threat drops off the more south you do travel into Kentucky. It's not a zero threat. Once you get into Kentucky, they're more of your spin-ups instead of the type that can be on the ground for miles and miles and miles, like sometimes these stronger tornadoes can certainly do. So let me show you a closer view. Again, a bit more of a higher potential as you get into Indiana. The Ohio River, again, as a dividing line. Lower potential as you head into Kentucky. Hail potential. We'll look at this a little closer, a little on the closer side in just a second, but overall, this is not going to be a huge concern unless you get into an individual cell, but we should have a lot of these cells that will be in a line, but you could easily get a lot of pea-size and even dime-size hail out of this kind of a setup. It is fairly cold still aloft, so that wouldn't surprise me, but I do not see a repeat of the other night, thank goodness. And your damage you win potential, I think goes without saying, really, you could draw that all the way up and down the line. So I don't think it's really a Kentucky versus Indiana thing on that. I think everyone has a chance to get some strong damaging winds briefly as the line moves in. Because here's the ordeal. We're going to get a windy day today. The wind, the strongest of this general wind, strongest of the gradient wind, really won't be ramping up until the last hours of the afternoon and just ahead of the actual line itself. And as we always say, anytime you get these thunderstorms that roll through, if you already got strong wind fields at play, they can enhance that. In some cases, they can enhance it by 10 to 15, maybe 20 miles per hour more than its potential can already be. So that could put you to severe limits on even just general wind. So need to watch the wind potential late this afternoon and evening. Could get some gusts easily over 50 miles per hour. 58 is the threshold for warning. If you don't hit 58, you don't see the gauges nearby hit 58, you could still get some minor tree damage, but you may not even get a warning. So just be aware that these are going to have a little bit of a kick to them on the wind side. There's strong support for there to be two lines. One, there'll be a prefrontal area of showers, and then the line of thunderstorms. Waiting to see how much that prefrontal wave of showers that pops a little earlier. This is going to be like 5 or 6 p.m. How much will that influence the main line? Will it completely weaken it? Usually it does. In this case, they're lined very parallel to each other, so there is a chance that even the main part of the line could maintain itself. But still, the more activity we get to pop in advance, we could see that help reduce a severe threat even more. This is looking at the cams, by the way. I don't get a chance to show the cams model very often here, but this is the cams model showing the beginning prefrontal wave of showers starting about 5 or 6 p.m. Then it kind of gets messy, kind of congeals into one, right? Here we are at 7:30. Now, any severe threat starting to show up into our Indiana counties already. Kentucky, because there is a slight tilt here to this, Kentucky will be a bit lagged by an hour, maybe 2 hours on the severe window versus Indiana will be, but not by much. Sometimes we've seen it far more slanted, right? Even last Friday night, it was extremely slanted to where it really didn't even get to Kentucky. And by the time I did, it was already fading out. So it's mainly the Ohio River north. So this one's not as slanted as last Friday night. It's a little more of an I-65 kind of look to it there. All right, brings in the main line. This is a damaging wind line look to it here. You got to watch for the line to wiggle. Anytime it can wiggle, you can get a brief rotation signature there. Sometimes it's just literally that, a rotating strong thunderstorm. Doesn't always necessarily mean a tornado. So I don't want you guys to get the two terminologies confused. Most thunderstorms, especially mature thunderstorms, do rotate, but they don't all produce tornadoes. Just letting you know that anytime we see a wiggle in the line, we got to pay attention to that and monitor carefully for a brief spin up. Those are very hard to detect, and they are number one type of tornado that we get here are these types that are real sneaky and real brief. Don't last very long, but boy, they're really hard to pick out. This is a snapshot at 10 o'clock. Again, this is just one model I'm showing you. It moves on by, and then we're done with this fairly quick. So the storm residency time in your area is maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and that's it. You're not going to be facing a setup where you're going to have to sit up all night long worrying about storms. This will all happen more than likely for a lot of you watching before the 11 o'clock news, and in some cases, for those of you east of 65, perhaps up to about midnight. But in general, this is a mid to late evening type of event, which is good. Most people will be awake and hopefully highly aware of this passing through here. All right, let me show you the HER model just updated. So we're looking at this actually for the first time. It's full run, just updated a few moments ago. Here we go with the prefrontal showers. Yeah, it's not as aggressive with it, right? It tries to hint at it. Also tries to hint that the sky may try to break up some. So we'll be watching that for any wind surges, but it still doesn't warm us much at all. It wants to get us into the upper 60s at best. We're still going to go a little bit above 70, but obviously the more sun we get, I'm telling you, the more sun we get than expected, we're going to easily surge into the 70s. Now that does lower the dew point down, but it will at least allow for a warmer setup for a while there this afternoon. All right, it has the main line of concern. I'm not as worried about the prefrontal right now, showers, but they may look a little scary and spooky because there'll be low-hanging clouds as they move in right at sunset. So it may look like we're about to get hammered by a big storm, and the reality is the main line's still a little bit more west. This will be a broken line, starts to approach the Wabash area around the 7 o'clock hour, gets toward Louisville around 9 o'clock. Fairly similar timing as the cams, right? Passes by 11:30, it's east of 65 and starts to weaken. And again, very skinny line, if you will, narrow line. Moving on through. Damage to wind threat will be the biggest issue, especially on any segment that can bow out. Your bowing segments, that's where you're going to get those winds that could be enhanced, because it's already going to be a windy setup this afternoon and tonight. So those bowing segments in the line, when they bow out like a backward C shape, that's when you can get those wind gusts that can get up to maybe severe limits. But that's going to be more common than the tornado threat will be with this line. To be clear, for our section of the line, straight line wind threat will be the lead on the threats, not tornadoes. All right, it moves on by, and then we're quieting down after that. One thing that's interesting is the dew point. I mentioned yesterday that the dry air is one thing that is trying to choke the southern part of the system versus Illinois and Indiana. It's having an impact on us. It's showing that we should be into the 40s for dew points. We're only like 35 on a dew point in Louisville and climbing, but not as fast as what some of the high-res modeling is indicating. So that is interesting. We'll see how much it can climb. You want to get, or you don't want to get, depending on if you want severe weather or not, above 55 this time of the year, closer to 60 gets you into the severe territory. And you can see that right at the last minute, this line moves in. That is when we get into dew points getting a little closer to 58 to 60. And that makes a difference. So as long as these numbers are realized, then yes, there is a legit severe threat, especially for damaging winds that can take place. If the drier air ends up holding longer than expected, that would reduce the threat. Something we just have to take hour by hour as we truck along for the rest of this Wednesday, okay? And then dry air flows in right in behind that. All right, let me break down some of these threats a little more. You guys love some of these maps. Your hail potential, this is just a radar or a model estimate. But in general, P size to dime. We don't have dime listed here, but dime is fair. Marble size, similar idea. P size, but smaller size hail compared to what you see around Indianapolis, where you got some of those supercells that may impact Indianapolis a little more prevalent. May be more of a concern there to get maybe some P to marble size. They'll skim across our northern Indiana counties, and then it just fades away altogether after that. What about rotation? Well, let me back that up. There are a few cells you see there at the let me back it up slow. Here we go. This model moves so fast. Right there, a couple of them try to rotate. Doesn't always mean tornado, just means they rotate. There's enough of a upward motion while they're rotating to monitor that area. Boy, this is about the same spot, though, that just got hit, right, with the tornado touchdowns. Parts of not far from Gibson County, not far from Du Bois County, not far from Lawrence County. You guys could be in that zone where some of those supercells may still hold on. You may run into at least a brief tornado threat this evening. Those of you south of that line, though, I just don't see the threat being as significant, which is good. Okay, another model I wanted to show, and I'm trying to get better at doing this and showing you guys different types of models. Let me see if I can do this without messing it all up. This is the HREF, and this model does very well on, at least in the past, in the most recent system, on detecting some of the winds that moved in and the possible tornado tracks. Let me see if I can get it to the right zone. There we go. What you're looking at is basically the instability, which will be in the gray that'll show up. But I want you to look carefully. As I move this along, look for any dark red lines. That would indicate those same helicity tracks or potential tornado tracks that can develop. This model did very well. It placed the ones in Lawrence County and Du Bois County nearly spot on. So as I advance this through this afternoon, all right, we're okay. We're okay. We're getting through Illinois. You can now, we're building up the fuel this afternoon, early evening. And then as we head into right there, we get into, I can't read the clock very well, I would assume this is going to be about, say, 5 to 6 p.m. It shows that potential supercells may touch down right in north central areas of Illinois that may carry over into parts of Indiana. But notice the lack of those marks into southern Indiana or Kentucky. We do not have those marks, but Illinois certainly does. That is why the enhanced risk is there and not here. And again, based on the track of the low, I just don't see that changing for us, which is a good thing. All right, just want to show you a little bit of some of that other modeling that is out there. All right, so that's where we stand on the severe side. Let me see if I have the bars ready for you all to show you the timing. Give me a second here. Thought I had them loaded in, but I don't think I did. So hold on one moment. These may be ready, but let me see if they are, to give you guys a timing. The prefrontal, there they are, the prefrontal wave of showers that pop, that's the only thing that I'm going to be watching for, and Ryan Hoke will be here with me as well. We'll be looking to see if that can disrupt that second line or not. If those prefrontal showers don't develop or are not as impressive as what some of the models indicate, then that main line may have more of a kick to it. And it has sped up in timing overall. You saw a lot of 7:30s to 9:30s, right, showing up. A couple of days ago, this was aiming a little more toward the 11 o'clock midnight hour. So with it speeding up just a bit more, there's a little bit more warmth for it to take advantage of and a little bit more moisture. So those finer details of only a couple of hours can make a difference. So that's the reason why we're going to be watching that window here. This is going to keep being an ever working project for us today. It's fine tuning these spikes, but that prefrontal showers kind of messes everything up, because if we just had the line only to track, we'd have one spike with the line and then it's over. But because we have to account for those showers that may try to fire in advance of it, and then you get the main line and then you're done. So I hope that isn't too confusing. So overall, tornado threat is low. It's not zero, but if you're traveling north, for those of you in our Indiana counties, Jackson, Jennings, certainly Lawrence County, Du Bois County, be on guard. Some of those supercells that build out of Illinois could build south toward your area this evening, very close to sunset. We'll be watching you carefully. If you're in the rest of southern Indiana, Louisville, and central Kentucky, the threat starts to diminish as you travel to the south, and more of a straight line wind issue where you get some of those bowing segments in that line, damaging wind gusts over 50 miles per hour up to 60. I can't roll that out. And some small hail, but I do not see this being a large hail set up for us for this afternoon. And as far as general wind goes today, yes, wind advisory is out, but as long as we stay cloudy, we're not going to get very strong wind surges. Once we start to break up some of these clouds, that will change things up. And right now I'm thinking that will happen at the very last minute before the line moves in this evening. So the strongest of the winds today should be more limited to the late afternoon and evening hours. All right. Any questions on that I can try to answer before I move on to our next topic that'll be ahead of us here? Kyle says, keep the baseball size hail away. Hey, we'll do our best, but that was a mess. Roofing companies are swamped right now, right? Trying to take care of all that. Hi, Carrie. Does the slanted line have more threats than a straight line? Yes, slanted has many more threats. Not only do you have the ability to get more, depending on the setup, but you can get more rotating cells that will track because they are feeding on the warm flow of air. They're not having to compete. So they're on the southernmost edge and they just keep repeating on that southern edge and can produce more rotation. And then you can also run into flash flooding if the line moves too slow at a very slanted way. This one's going to be moving fast enough that right now the average rainfall amount looks to be about 1/4 of an inch. So that's going to keep the flooding risk down, which is good. With this being a little more of an I-65 orientation to it, this is going to move in and this is going to move on out. It's going to have wind with it, but it's windy either way. Even if we didn't have the storms, it would be windy, right? But you add the storms onto it, the winds can get enhanced. The worst of the severe weather is Illinois and central Indiana, our northern counties in Indiana. We need to monitor for perhaps 1 or 2 supercells this evening. Anytime near sunset through about the 11 o'clock news tonight is a fair window for all of us to be on guard. And that's when the most updates will be coming in from us about how this will play out. So I hope that gives you a good summary of what to expect in the short term. Kyle, just a technical question. Are you able to manually program dew points? Yes. What Kyle is basically saying, if the dew points aren't matching, can we alter them and then get a different outcome? In some cases, yes, we can skew that, but we have to do a lot of that hand-drawn. There's not really a model form that we have yet that spits that out. I believe the Weather Service has a program that is able to do that. Some computer whizzes out there probably have them. We just have to manually do it, and it's without a doubt, you increase the dew point, you increase the hail potential, and you increase the chance for not only that, but also for the isolated tornado threat. But right now, the dew point running behind schedule, it doesn't necessarily mean anything yet. All right, it could easily catch up. It's just right now it's running a little bit behind. All right, Austin, you have led me to the right question of when do we get back in the 70s and 80s again? Where I'm about ready to answer that. Here's what we're going to do. Let's take a quick little break because I'm on different computers here today. So let me switch things over and get you into the second part of the storyline, which features, a little bit more of a wintry component. Oh, you knew I was going to say it. I'm back here in 30 seconds. Hang tight, guys. All right, guys, thanks for hanging tight with me here. Here we go. Let's dive into the second part of the system, which is going to be the colder side. Here is a look at our in-house graph model, which is similar to the others, indicating that line of storms rolling on through. Timing very similar, but I'm not going to break down this model because the others are, it's too much noise. I'm not trying to overwhelm you guys with every single weather model out there. If I got a headache, you're going to get a headache. All right, but here we go. Tomorrow, a colder day, first day of spring, officially starts at 5:01 in the morning. Windy, blustery day. Yeah, you can get some snowflakes, snow showers, but it's cold enough above our head for sure. But the layer closer to the ground level is still above freezing. So it's a question, and it will depend on terrain and how heavy these snow showers are. But in some areas, the snowflake will be able to remain visible beyond the tree line, and you'll see it. And in some cases, it will not be heavy enough to fall at a faster rate, and therefore it has time to melt into a drop by the time you see it at ground level. So it will highly vary, especially for Kentucky. That's normally the case. So some of you will see snow showers or snow mixed in with rain. Some of you will get just rain, but it's not going to be a snowstorm. It's not going to cause travel issues. It's just going to be a sore reminder that winter does not ever want to give up around here, even when it comes to the first day of spring. And then we get cold into Thursday night and Friday morning, below freezing, looking likely. Friday doesn't look bad. Increasing clouds, Friday night late. Light rain does sneak in, but that looks like it's going to be an overnight event, Friday night and pre-dawn Saturday. And by the time you wake up on Saturday, I don't think there's going to be much left. So Saturday could still be a decent day for us with rain right before that. Next week gets complex. Well, the latter half of the weekend does too. That low pressure we're watching for Sunday still looks like it's going to dig right over us as it moves in Sunday night. But right now, it should produce a wave of severe weather that's a little more focused across Tennessee into Louisiana at an arc. That's your best potential for severe right now. I think it's moving too fast and not at a good angle, more of a clipper angle to where I'm not too worried on severe, but a good soaking rain Sunday night, you bet. But here's where we get into the weirdness for next week is that, as I mentioned yesterday, we're going to get some of these troughs that really want to dig and carve here into the Great Lakes at times. That's going to keep the warm air at bay, but it puts us in a very tough spot for a battle zone that'll be focused right along from South Dakota through the Ohio Valley to the Carolinas, where you're going to have wintry weather to the north at times, and rain and warmer weather on the southern side. We will likely be right on the fence of several systems next week that could play either into the rain or snow hand, certainly depending on the time of day. I'm not going to get too specific into specifics right now because I just see it being too noisy to pick out one particular one and to know which way it's going to go. I can just tell you that the overall pattern fits this idea of this pattern, the baroclinic zone, we call that, being stuck to where your warmer air is going to be stuck south, colder north. We'll see what happens next week, but do not bet on 70s and 80s for next week. Once we get beyond this and this moves out of the way, this boundary lifts out, yes, and that may be April by the time that happens. And then at that point, you know what's going to happen. And we're back to Storm Talk. Once again there, right? All right, so 72. We'll be optimistic today and see how warm we get, but some of these sun breaks later today. Windy setup. We'll watch tonight. It's going to be an active night for a while, just for the evening hours, okay? And then tomorrow, cold, blustery day. Good day to stay inside, watch some games. And then as we head into Friday and Saturday, daytime periods look decent. It's Friday overnight that has that light rain. That 20% is splitting both. Share responsibility for that. Sunday night is rain, and then next week we'll keep it relatively cool until we get that zone to shake free and move out of our way. All right, there you go, guys. At least the cooler pattern will cut down on severe weather for a while. That's a plus in itself, right? Got to run. Appreciate y'all as always. I'll see you guys coming up on midday. Stay close to our forecast changes today. I'm sure there's going to be several.